This is a brief tutorial to get you acquainted with the Book of Mormon analysis tools to learn how to build your own simple random sample. I want to call your attention to some of the key parts of this spreadsheet file here. This will be the first page you would open up to, and you'll notice the book, chapter, and verses of the entire Book of Mormon are labeled here in columns A, B, and C. If I were to scroll all the way down to the bottom of this worksheet, I could take it all the way down to Moroni 10, 34, and you'll notice that the very last row is row 6,605 right there. And so I want to call your attention to the fact that because we have a header up at the very top, when we randomize our rows, we're going to actually start at row 2 and conclude at row 6,605. And that's how you get started building your simple random sample. Because what we'll want to do here is just test this out to get started. I'm going to just choose a low number, say arbitrarily I choose 25. When I put 25 into this sample, you'll notice row 25 is 1 Nephi chapter 2 verse 4, and that shows up exactly where we'd hope, right here, using these nice functions that Excel has built in. But what we'll need to do, more importantly, is randomize it. So we're going to use a function called randbetween. So I'm starting with equality. I'm going to choose type or choose randbetween, and then it needs a bottom and a top. So that's referring to the lowest number, which is row 2, comma, and then row 6,605. Again, even though the Book of Mormon has 6,604 verses, we need to go one more to account for the header that's up at the top of the spreadsheet. When I hit enter, you'll notice that it's 3,225 for the row, but that gives us a corresponding Alma 24 and 29 for chapter and verse. I want to confirm that row really quickly just to make sure it's behaving properly. So if I go down to row 3225, scanning down here carefully as best I can, 3225, and I think we've got it right there. And that's Alma 2429, and when we go up to the top, there it is, Alma 2429. So it's working correctly. I always like to cross-check just to make sure that it's behaving the way we had hoped. And now I'm going to get the black crosshair, bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to click on that cell and carefully drag down in order to randomize all 25 verses. And notice that every time I hit Control equals on the keyboard, on a Mac or a PC, probably won't matter, Control equals does a recalculation. So we get a constant flow of random verses throughout the Book of Mormon. All right, but the idea is we need to stabilize at some location there in order to actually conduct an analysis. We've got to stop that randomization. In order to stop the randomization, I'm going to highlight the 25 random rows, do a right-click copy, and simply a right-click paste special. Not just a paste, but a paste special. And I'll simply ask for values only to be pasted back in when I hit OK and escape. This time when I do a control equal, nothing changes. When I double click on any given row, you'll notice the actual value is there, no longer is randbetween located in any of those cells. So you have to do that if you want to avoid the samples changing on you. You need to lock it in. Now that I've accomplished that, we can go over here and talk about how to analyze the data, how to get or collect the data, better said. Because we're going to take a look at these book, chapter, verses and calculate the number of proper noun references and list them in column K. So I've got an example to share with you that was also on the PowerPoint slide to help you out. I'm going to click over here on this brief example. So here is a spreadsheet that was already randomized, and a variety of responses here. Notice that if you were to total all of these up, they would give you 18, and that is found by using the summation formula that was built for you already for total number of PNRs, proper noun references. And then in the verses containing proper noun references, we're using a function called count, and it simply looks at all the cells and establishes how many have an entry of any kind. It's another way of saying how many verses in our sample of 25 contain one or more proper noun references, one or more PNRs, and there would be 9 of them. And the reason that 9 is important is we divide it by the number of samples, that is 25 verses sampled, and that's what this formula here represents. And that will generate our point statistic, or a point estimate, sometimes called in statistics. That 36% is suggesting that of all the 25 verses we analyzed, 36% of them contain one or more proper noun references of Christ. Also, it's important to understand multiplicity. So if I take you up here to Moroni 1033, you'll notice there were 6. And to better appreciate why 6 is there, and yet there are only 3 references listed here in column K, let me take you to a digital copy of the Book of Mormon. So here we are in chapter 10, Book of Moroni. When I scroll down and I reach verse 33, just scanning through there, you can see that there are 2 references of God, 3 of Christ, and 1 of the Father, for a total of 6 different references. In Susan Easton Black's study, she considered the Father and the Son to be deity, and we'll want to use the 100 references she used, and so whenever you see Father, we'll go ahead and count it, even though it may not necessarily be referring to the Son. So, one other thing in summary here is you'll notice that right below that estimate, that sample proportion we call it, there is a left-hand side of a confidence interval and a right-hand side. If I double-click, you'll notice that we're subtracting 20%, and that stems from the margin of error formula, which is 1 divided by the square root of n. Since n is our sample size of 25, 1 divided by root 25 will give us that margin of error of 20%. All right, so that's how you get your confidence interval, and then this function here is rather nice. It's either going to be a yes or a no, and we accomplish that by doing an if and an and, which is a nice connection back to your logic unit from Math 108. But we didn't expect you to build that formula from scratch, but all it essentially is doing is it's taking a look at the sample proportion and asking a simple question. Is the confidence interval we've created, that is 16% to 56%, is it going to trap or contain this population parameter of 40.8? Where did the 40.8 come from? Well, that comes from our census data. And so when you have time, you'll want to explore this worksheet as well as the New Testament census data for some interesting features. But you'll notice up here in blue on the Book of Mormon census data, we have 40.8%, and that was accomplished by taking the total number of verses and the total number of verses that contain 1 or more reference. And so it's a nice way to do it as a census. And over here on the left-hand side, you'll see the proper noun references of column D. And we've gone through literally the entire Book of Mormon verse by verse as best we could, as well as doing a word analysis using Microsoft Word and LDS.org. We were able to record the number of words in each of the verses of the Book of Mormon as well as the New Testament. So you'll want to explore those when convenient. And the last tab is the 1830 edition of the Book of Mormon, which did not contain verses but rather paragraphs that were rather long. And so it gives you an appreciation of how verses came to be, and also how that would cause a difference in the calculation of that 1.7 statistic that you'll be analyzing. Finally, the other tab that's in your tool, your analysis tool worksheet for Excel is this class analysis worksheet, and you'll use that with your teacher in order to pull other students' results together and create a histogram as well as confidence interval on these 2 graphs here. That's where you compile the various different sample proportions from other students who have done exactly what you've done. I think you'll learn a lot about the central limit theorem as a result and gain a better appreciation for hypothesis testing. So hopefully that helps give you an overview of what this spreadsheet's all about. Just remember to do not overlook the importance of doing a paste special and getting those random numbers back to being values, and you can back up the video and watch it again for help on the RAM between function. Thanks for watching.